Hey y'all, Chris here. Just want to pop in before the video gets going here to say that we had some unexpected camera trouble midway through the recording you're about to see. We haven't recorded one of these video episodes in the middle of the day yet, so we didn't expect the phone to overheat and stop filming. We learned our lesson the hard way for sure, but just wanted to let you guys know that the video will be cutting off at this time code, and we'll let you know on screen when that's about to happen as well. Other than that, everything else went as normal, and I hope you enjoy our review of the Fantastic Four First Steps. Let's get to it.
And welcome back to another episode of Pinoys versus the World. My name is Harald Hyllseth.
My name is Chris Angkico.
And Chris, happy Ichiro Day. As we're speaking, Ichiro Suzuki getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Always got to do as many Seattle shoutouts as we can. I mean, we just got done watching about half his speech, which was hilarious. He's a philosopher, as that one dude in the crowd, if you see the video in post, thought he was. Just a good reaction to his speech, you know.
Are you gonna put that in?
Oh, this is going in.
Yeah, you're gonna put that the Ichiro speech in?
Yeah, in Jonas in post.
You gotta have at least the expired. The way he says expired. Play it here.
Play it.
The offer for that writer to have dinner at my home has now expired.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's fantastic.
We love it.
The whole thing. I mean, Ichiro is just he's such a jokester, which I'm not too familiar with, honestly. I haven't heard him speak too many times.
Yeah.
But the times that I have heard him speak, I'm like, yeah, he's got some quips to him.
Not a guy who traditionally speaks in American settings in English. You know, he's had a translator his whole career, but obviously a little sneaky. Whenever he needs to do it, he'll do it, and it's super sick. So shout out Ichiro. Very unrelated from the actual reason we are gathering today. I'm here to talk about the second reboot, the brand new Marvel that just came out, Fantastic Four. And very excited to get just into it probably immediately, Chris. What a time it's been. There's been two versions theatrically released of this movie, of this IP as movies, 3 different movies, and 4, I guess, if you include the unreleased straight to DVD or unreleased entirely. First Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I think it's unreleased entirely.
Crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people bringing that up now recently, which I didn't know about. But
Yeah.
I think it's technically 4 if you count that.
It was cool. You saw the original Fantastic Four, that first of this now 4th iteration, which is crazy. A lot of 4s are going to be in this episode that were invited to the premiere last week, which is really cool to see. The original 4 cast members of that unreleased movie. And they're actually in the film. But these are things we're going to get into today when we get into the spoiler discussion for Fantastic Four. But Chris, as we always do, I'm going to toss it over to you. Just talk about our non-spoiler review and just get us started on that before we head over and talk about a ton of spoilers for the Matt Shakman Fantastic Four film.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I think a lot of people are saying this, because obviously Superman just came out 2 weeks ago and we got this movie. And those movies just share like tons of DNA. They're the most like unashamed like comic book movies that we've gotten in a long time. I think it seems like these studios are sort of learning their lesson in that, grounded and realistic is pretty tired at this point, and I think a lot of people just want to see, I think people are ready for more just like comic-looking worlds where it's like this is exactly what it looks like on the page, and it comes to the screen. I mean, we'll get in more into like people like Galactus later, but in the previous or maybe just one previous iteration, he's just a blob,
just a cloud.
He's just a gas cloud basically, and in this he is a giant man. He's a giant man whose eyes make sounds when they light up. Again, we'll get more into that later, but it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, just give people the thing that they've been looking at, like, as comic book readers, just see the guy with this tuning fork hat and just walking through New York City and just like, taking pieces of grass and smelling them and stuff like that. But I think the other thing, the really big thing, I think the thing that really kind of made the movie for me was just the 1960s aesthetic to it. A lot of people are calling it retro future. That's kind of the big buzzword around the aesthetic. But like the whole like ABC breaking news thing. I mean, I love, I've just been watching more like special features from like movies from like the 60s that have like, they were made in that because that was the modern aesthetic. And to see it like sort of updated and put into this movie was very cool. Like, it's that sort of like 60s sensibility with like more like the fast paced editing and like motion graphics design that we can do today. And so I think throughout the movie, just like the world and the aesthetic is so strong. And you know, irregardless of my eventual rating at the end of this episode, the aesthetic is a 5 out of 5. I think it's one of the best like looking Marvel movies they've ever made.
Incredible. Chris, since the first, I think it was released as a really fun, speaking of aesthetic, when they had announced the cast, right? Something we'd all been waiting for years now. I mean, I don't even know how long it's been, but it's been over a few years since Marvel re-obtained the rights to the Fantastic Four. And that alone would get anyone excited. But then obviously we go through the trials and tribulations of Phase 5 moving forward past Endgame that, you know, would maybe not give you the most secure feeling that this Fantastic Four movie was going to land without a doubt. Whereas maybe when it had originally happened, when they had gotten the IP, I was like, this is going to be a banger without any worry. Now, those fears immediately, for me, at least, went out of the window when they had released the first little snippet announcing that it was Ebon Moss-Backrack as the Thing, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. You know, we've got Sue Storm, played by the great Vanessa Kirby, and obviously the big one, Pedro Pascal. Talking about Pascal Summer, he's everywhere. But now he is playing one of the most famous characters in the Marvel Pantheon, Reed Richards. And they had that released in the 60s aesthetic, kind of like a Time magazine drawn photo, you know, and it just looked like, damn, this movie was going to have sauce from the beginning. And that's what I felt like when I left the film. This movie has an incredible amount of sauce, a huge amount of pizzazz, and more than anything, just like we were talking about in the car after the film, incredibly inspired. Like, you can tell Matt Shakman wanted to make a friggin' comic book movie, man. And like you already said the note about Superman. Superman is incredible for its own right and its own reasons, but I personally found myself enjoying Fantastic Four even more than that. And it's kind of hard, at least, not to compare the two, having been like the two biggest blockbusters so far of the year and coming out in the same month. And honestly, like we said, I think I might throw it over to you real quick before we go back to some of my thoughts on the non-spoiler, because I got my mind jumping around to when you were talking about how you thought that if this Fantastic Four movie did not land, it would be more hurtful and detrimental to the MCU moving forward than if Superman didn't land, right? And like Superman, you know, for what it was, it's the first of a many, many, many movie series coming forward. But we're at a point in the MCU where you kind of needed this movie to land regardless of what, you know, maybe people thought coming in and out of it. But this movie had to at least release to audience acclaim, at the very least, maybe a 4 out of 5 or something that gets people excited for the movies coming up, because we've got some big ones following Fantastic Four.
So here's the thing. Maybe I was going to save this more later in the episode, but now that you've brought it up, like the whole, like, you know, Marvel needs this sort of thing. I think the problem is, and you know, with the movie in general, is that aesthetically on its own, it's really strong. The world's really strong. The problem is that it's on a completely different world that we will probably, unless there is a Fantastic Four sequel, never revisit. Like, not even the team, you know, like they might not be in the next, you know, depending on what happens in like the future Avengers movies, if they reset the whole world, then like all the different people will be reset. So it's just like you move them to the regular Marvel Earth and they basically will just collide with all the other characters. And it sounds like they're going to have like sort of a leading role in like what happens in that movie, but it's not going to be like their world, and they have to compete with like, you know, basically a 2025 looking world, you know, like just our world. And it's not what they're from. And it's like a lot of the charm of this movie is not going to carry over into other things. So that's like the primary concern, I think, for me and a lot of people who like enjoy this movie as a standalone, is that I just don't see how you make, unless they return to their world,
right,
how it's going to be like, it's kind of just a blip on the radar and not necessarily an indicator of like future quality.
No, and I mean, you already hit on the point that I think is a perfect segue back into just my general thoughts about the film, the aesthetic of the film. I don't have to say any more than you said about it until we get into the spoiler section. But just being on its own earth too just makes this a special movie. And it's one of the, we're getting back-to-back films from Marvel, Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, that you could probably show to any regular Joe Blow, just someone who wants to get ahead of the game. And damn, that's crazy.
If you're seeing the bee in the camera, apologies. There you go. It's buzzing around. It might come back, but
yeah, it might come back. We might have to.
Coming over here.
God damn it, bro! Fuck that. Damn it, bro. Yeah, go back to your fucking.
Yeah, no, I know the nest is over there.
Fucking nest.
Yeah,
that's so funny. I didn't even consider that the bee could just be in front of the camera and just.
I didn't realize that.
Anyways, Jonas,
up to you if you want to keep that in.
Yeah, Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, the aesthetic of this movie, like you talked about, it's probably one of the strengths of the film that really like carries us through the most. But you said it there, Earth 828. This isn't happening on anything in Earth 616 or anything in the universe that we've known in Marvel up until now. And I think, again, if you're taking this as one of the examples of how we've gotten 2 Marvel movies now this year, that Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four that you can enjoy separately from the entire pantheon of the universe, this is like the primary example, I think probably the best movie in the MCU just to get into without any origin story. We get some origin story much more than we get from Superman. But you get a lot of background of, how it happens in a very short amount of time, how they get their powers. And we're just jumping right into them being the real main characters, and this was confirmed by Matt Shakman, the only heroes in this world with superpowers, right? And it makes it even more spectacular that they return from space with these newfound powers. And, it's insinuated in the name First Steps as well. We got a child who, you got to watch the movie, and we'll get into this in spoiler reviews later about powers and such, but very famous characters in the Marvel Pantheon that they are landing. You've talked about Galactus. That boy is a behemoth. That man, when he pops on the screen, he is more than a man. That is a giant. That is something, I think, speaking of Jonas, executive producer, as he's walking out, we were talking about how that is, how do you even compare it to Thanos? It's like a different type of feeling to get from something that menacing and a character that seemed, at least up until this point, in my opinion, pretty undoable in live action form, right? He is literally he's 4 times the size of the Statue of Liberty, at least scale-wise in the movie, and traditionally in the films is enough to, eat up an entire planet on his own for his insatiable hunger. They land that. I love the Silver Surfer in this film. They got the Silver Surfer actually surfing, and I will say that the Silver Surfer, before we get into it in spoilers, is probably the center of my favorite action set piece in the new post-Endgame MCU so far, and most definitely top 5 in the entire MCU. So I think this movie really delivers on giving you a sense of awe. It really feels like being on a Disneyland ride, but I don't even mean that. I mean that as a compliment. Like it's like sitting through something that you've never experienced before, at least in the scope of the MCU. And I'm just really excited about people getting to see this for the first time, getting introduced to the Fantastic Four. Just even a little bit more background. My first, I guess, movie that I ever saw with comic book characters wasn't Spider-Man. It was The Rise of the Silver Surfer. Personally, I have a lot of attachment to these characters as they were like kind of the ones that brought me into the wider comic verse, obviously as we got into the MCU beginning in the first place. But wow, this movie, loved it. End to end was just one of my favorite things to come out this year in general, and probably one of my favorite projects from Marvel ever. And it's something that I know that we've seen it twice. That second time when we got to go see it with Jonas, definitively one of my favorite times seeing a comic book movie in quite a while with the crowd. And yeah, there's just so much we can't talk about without getting into the spoilers, Chris. So unless you've got anything else for the crowd, I'm going to transition us, but I'll throw it over to you real quick.
Yeah, last thing, I'm not going to be a total shill for IMAX here, but I will say the whole movie is shot in IMAX. So if you have a local IMAX theater, you will get the whole, the ratio is going to be the same the whole time. So, and I think it does make a difference, especially for
huge difference.
The big things like Galactus, he looks massive and gigantic.
Dude's
on that
a unit.
Screen. Yeah,
he's an absolute unit.
So I'm sure the big thing with movie promotion now is like, go see it on the biggest screen, like go see it in IMAX. But I do think for this one, you definitely should see it in IMAX. I think because they take full advantage of it the whole movie. They don't go back in and out with like the aspect ratios. That's always a big like kind of beef with me is when like movies do that for like certain sequences. I like it, but like I'm okay with it. But I like that this is like the whole movie is shot that way. So
yeah. And I would agree too. There's a lot of cosmic type things happening in this movie. I mean, again, we'll probably compare it to things like the Eternals in the spoiler half of the review, but for many Marvel movies not really attaching themselves to space as much. I mean, this one, like just far, in my opinion, far and above just skies as one of the best interpretations of the more cosmic and more weird side. Shout out Jack Kirby, without him, none of this happens. And there's a lot of brilliant references to him in the movie that I think we'll get into as well. So as you can tell, I'm very excited. Chris is very excited to hop into this spoiler review of Fantastic Four, coming to you right after this short break. And we're back to talk to you all about our spoiler review of Fantastic Four. But Chris, we end up in Earth 828, like we said prior to the break. We are away from Earth 616, I believe, to start a movie for the first time ever. I know Multiverse of Madness kind of gets into some weird stuff on different universes and different art styles, but this truly is one of the only Marvel movies that will give you a feeling that, you know, you're watching a superhero film with the quality of the best Marvel can offer you, away from its main universe and honestly all the things that have weighed down the MCU in the past 4 to 5 years that have had to connect to keeping things connected. So we already start off with that, and we just get thrown right into it. I know you're a big fan of the ABC presentation, really flexing that Disney IP connectivity, and I was too. And it really pulls you in from the very beginning. But I'll throw it over to you. I do have to note, because we're just going to jump into it. The movie just starts with probably the most important through line, at least from I'm assuming Matt Shakman's point of view, the eventual birth of Franklin Richards, their son, that Sue Storm and Reed Richards have in the comics, and now are just hopping right into it. Is like a different thing that they haven't done in any of the Fantastic Four movies we've ever gotten, right?
Yeah, first of all, I'm gonna continue my opening logo glaze, because the one thing that Marvel has done, at least in all their 3 movies, if you remember, Captain America came out this year. It feels very long ago,
An eternity,
considering the last 2 movies, like the jump in quality. But you know, the opening Marvel logo is like in a very like 60s style, like sort of the animation, like the easing. I work with a lot of graphic stuff, so the easing is very like linear, but like, you know, everything like folds out in a very like defined manner, I guess I would say. But like the Marvel Studios, it looks like an old 50s 60s logo. And then when we get into like the ABC News special report stuff, I think it does something really smart in like Superman. I think the one flaw with the Superman opening is that it's just text. And a lot of it is just like you don't see what Superman, like any of his origin or like who he's fought or anything prior to the movie starting. But Fantastic Four, like I think the newsreel is like a really smart way to being like, you know what, let's you know, let's make an excuse like 4 years of the Fantastic Four. The world loves these people. Let's give them let's get everyone a reason to like kind of get familiar with what they've been doing. And so like you see some of like the villains they've defeated, like they're sort of like near, you know, like the Mad Thinker, they got like these like super apes.
the super apes. Come on,
You know, a swamp monster coming out of the ground. Like you see like, you know, kind of the highlights of like their time together. And there's even in some of the clips like they're wearing different costumes because they go, you know, and then they have like the cartoon, you know, and it says like it's clobbering time and all that other stuff. So I think it was a really good way. It was kind of the thing I think kind of missing from Superman is that I wanted to see a little bit of what he was up to and like who he's about, like before we get into it. And the Fantastic Four you do, because also you need to know what Ebon Moss-Backrack looked like before he became a rock monster.
for very few short minutes, you got to flex that check you paid him.
Yeah, and so I'm glad that, you know, they gave an excuse to like get him in there too. But yeah, I think the biggest development is that, you know, like you said, you know, Reed and Sue are having a baby, and that baby is very important. Franklin Richards, obviously, throughout the movie, you see it being born, and you see obviously at the end what it can do. But yeah, starting the movie off that way, it's like, you know, let you know that like that's super important.
It's super important. I mean, yeah, it's in the name of the film. I mean, I should have even begun this. That this is a review of Fantastic Four: First Steps. That is the full title of this film. First Steps, as in a reboot of the franchise that, you know, I would argue Fantastic Four are probably one of the top 3 most beloved IPs next to the Mutants and the Avengers in Marvel. You know, I'm sure that is up for interpretation by many people, but those would be my top 3 most interesting groups out of the ones that come out of the comics and now have all been interpreted in different ways on the big screen. But yeah, I mean, Franklin Richards, to begin with it, to have him beat the baby, and kind of honestly seems like it's going to be a pretty important part of Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. There's not much, I think, about the comics that knowledge I can bring, because I never read that iteration. I believe the 2015 version that they're basing the coming films off of. But from the beginning, like you said, ABC, we get to even see at the very beginning them all using their powers in ways that kind of, at least to me, I think the first 30 to 40 minutes of this movie is some of the best Marvel we've ever gotten. Some of the best MCU we've ever gotten.
The first 30 minutes is, I think, the strongest part of the movie by far. Like, it just kind of like, it feels stylistically so different from everything else that Marvel does in all their other movies. It sort of like flattens out, I would say, like the rest of the movie kind of gets more into like the Marvel formula, kind of settles into it more. But that first 30 minutes, because we're on a new world, we're on a new team, I think a lot of the things that we've never seen before, and like a world that like, you know, unanimously celebrates them as heroes and knows
the
they're
only heroes of Earth. Yeah,
the only heroes of Earth, and people that are like, yeah, again, like universally just praised.
Yeah.
That's not something we've ever seen. Obviously, Iron Man, you know, start the MCU, you know, Tony Stark was a weapons manufacturer, and like basically, you know, his weapons are being used by terrorists.
Yeah.
And then like he realizes he has a change of heart and all this other stuff, and then the Avengers are formed in all these different ways. Like a guy comes down from the sky, a dude gets unfrozen out of ice. Then you have like just two like random, you know, like agent people, and they become the Avengers. But these people are like, you know, they've all known each other. Everyone knew who they were when they went up into space. They came back with powers, and they just became even more celebrated. So,
well, and the thing
it's
not Matt Fraction.
Matt Fraction.
Shout out Matt Fraction, one of the best comic book writers right now. But Matt Fraction is crazy. Matt Shakman really landed, showing the audience how important it is to the story of this entire group, the many iterations that we've gotten, is that they are a family. They are Marvel's first family. They feel like a family. The chemistry for Vanessa Kirby and Pedro Pascal are off the fucking charts. And you excuse my language, because this is where I'm going to get really excited about this. The casting for this movie is spectacular, end to end. But obviously the most important thing they had to land was the Fantastic Four themselves. Ebon Moss-Backrack is honestly an inspired choice as Ben Grimm. And to see him and the way that they kind of brought the thing to life in a way that it looked like it was, again, pulled straight off of a comic book page. I don't know if you've had a chance to see this, but they had prosthetic, like kind of an odd, but like fairly well-designed live action prosthetic stand-in for many of these scenes that Ben Grimm is in, especially when he's in his street clothes. And then obviously you CGI over it, and then you have Ebon Moss-Backrack do his thing behind the booth. But that turns out to be great. It's my favorite thing interpretation on the big screen ever. I got a lot of love for the original where it was all practical, but this is my definitive thing. And obviously Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, probably the one I was the least hot on entering, just because I'm not a big Stranger Things guys. I don't really know a whole lot about Johnny Storm in general out of the Fantastic Four, but he really felt like Johnny Storm for what I do know about him, because that's at the end of the day, they're all incredibly smart people. Ben's the hotshot pilot, Johnny Storm and Sue Storm are both brilliant scientists and people in their own way, or linguists in the term of Johnny Storm. And then Pedro, I think, lands it as the world's smartest man, at least this world's smartest man, right? Which kind of leads to them even getting into a position where they can become superheroes to begin with. But Chris, I think everything at the beginning, even with the way that they show their first fights, the big one against Mole Man, come on, what do I got here? Played by Paul Walter Hauser, butter me up. You know what I mean? That's my guy.
Why don't you butter me up?
Why don't you butter me up?
Paul Walter Hauser's in this thing for like 6 or 7 minutes, and he almost like steals the show for me completely. Like he just goes in there and he's like, I'm just gonna ham it up. You can just tell the guy can act. You know, it's almost like he's not even in the Marvel movie. It's like he's just decided that he's in his own slapstick comedy.
He's Harvey Elder.
That's like in the movie itself, and it's just like, I'm just gonna do it. Like the whole like the motion to like slather on like the, you know, butter on bread is like crazy. I don't think they told him to do that. I think he just decided to do it.
The beauty of
just,
improv.
Yeah, it's just wild.
But the Pan Am building falling at the beginning, it gives you a chance to see all their powers too. I was very worried about Mr. Fantastic stretching powers, and I'm sure everyone was. We talked a little bit before the film, or maybe after the first time we saw it. I was like, well, I guess they did pull it off in the live action version of One Piece, which we talked a little bit about. The thing that brought me into One Piece. Shout out One Piece whenever I can. But the stretching physics in the modern age, it doesn't seem to be something that hampers any kind of storytelling now, where it looked a little goofy in the mid 2000s movies, you know, kind of campy, fit the vibe. But here I'm like, yeah, Pedro stretches. That man can stretch.
Well, I think we should sort of just a little bit of a tangent is like discussing the effects in general. I think a lot of the effects really work, especially when they're like in space, or like you see the views of the city. I was getting like big like Interstellar 2001 A Space Odyssey vibes when they go up into space for the first time and dock with their engine. I'm not saying I'm not going to compare it to like Interstellar or 2001 or anything like that. But like, I just love like seeing the inspiration from like those movies where like you can tell some of the angles where like, even like, you know, when the camera's like on the bottom of the ship and that looks like, you know, it's facing back toward Earth, or like when they dock the engine. And even like I was getting kind of like Star Trek vibes when like the camera's like off to the side as you see it sort of fly by. And the wormhole was really cool too. So I think for like 95% of it, I really enjoyed the effects. There were some very obvious green screen reshoots in the middle.
The Thing? Oh, man.
Well, The Thing, I think it's not even The Thing. It's like I think the worst effects of the movie is when anyone's holding the baby.
CGI baby.
The CGI baby.
We don't like CGI baby.
The CGI baby did not work. Especially when Thing, and then also too, like there's some scenes where like Thing has to transfer the baby to another person at the Like when Sue like dies, like she, like Thing is holding the baby and he's crying and it looks weird. And then he transfers the baby to Pedro, and that looks weird too.
Because the baby stops crying immediately.
Baby stops crying, but also too, you can just tell it's like lit differently too.
Yeah.
It's like they shot it somewhere different, and it's like, okay, we're just gonna like keyframe the move to like into the hand.
We're gonna get as close as possible.
So like when Pedro's holding the baby, it's fine. But it's like when you have like certain things where it's like you have a CG baby that needs to like float through something or like needs to be like floated in Thing's hands, it just looks so weird.
Yeah.
And like again, like the whole green screen reshoots were most obvious during like Vanessa Kirby's speech out on the deck, when you can just tell like they added new lines in. Like the editing there was just like, I could tell there was like chopped lines like chopped together to make it sound like, okay, like this is from the previous shoot.
Right.
We're gonna put that back in. And then when Pedro comes back and is like, oh, we couldn't beat Galactus, that entire thing we couldn't beat Galactus is like a reshoot. And it was like, because the rest of the movie is like so aesthetically like cool, it was like even more jarring when you could tell something was like off.
Well, the first time you also see Times Square, well, side note again on the Thing, because now we got thinking about it a little bit. They gave the Thing way too many scenes with holding the CGI baby. I was
yeah.
Why did the Thing have to be the guy? I get it's kind of Ben Grimm's thing. That's Mr. Fantastic's best friend. But we could have done with a little less the Thing holding a CGI baby. But no, 100%, 95% of this movie's effects are, again, some of the best and most inspired I think we've seen in the MCU. More than ever too, and I just really felt that like, oh my gosh, this thing has the sauce, is when they show their version of New York in Times Square. And honestly, the difference is between, Ben Grimm goes back to kind of a poorer part, a more immigrant, like Jewish part of New York, like where he grew up, to get his cookies, to visit the people around there, and his, like, I'm sure his neighbors and people he's known forever, because that's at the end of the day, these are also very, in a similar way to Superman, very accessible superheroes. Everyone knows there's no private and secret identities in this sense, but everyone's like chill with them because they're like, okay, they are just the ultimate version of good. Like, and I'm sure they had already done a lot of stuff with the Future Foundation inside of the Baxter Building for the entire world at that point. Because when you have Reed Richards as the smartest man on Earth, like, he is innovating out of his ass. Like, he is doing things.
The Future Foundation is so interesting because, like, as part of like the montage where you sort of see what they do, they basically gotten every country in the world to agree to not fight each other, which is wild.
Except for one very important.
Except for one, like Latveria is not there, and obviously that comes into play later because we're in spoilers. So spoilers. But yeah, it just shows you like the impact that like they have on the world, and like like again, someone like Ben can just kind of like walk through his neighborhood
and it'd be chill
and like is completely fine. People want him to like lift up a car and stuff. I was wondering if like the person who owned the car was going to come out, but that did not happen.
How would you feel if you walked outside and you saw Ben Grimm lifting up your daily driver?
See, the thing is though, I think probably Fantastic Four insurance. I'm sure they'd cover it.
Fantastic insurance.
I'm sure they're so rich and like everyone loves them. I'm sure he'd cover it. I'm sure Ben would cover it.
Do you think the Fantastic Four are the top 0.00001% of the wealth holders in the country, in the world?
Absolutely. I think the way that they're positioned, the things that we'll be talking about, everyone relies on the Fantastic Four for like morals.
For everything.
And like world protection.
Yeah.
It's like they're like, there may be presidents and other like world leaders, but like Fantastic Four feel like they run the world. Not only like do they, you could go into like certain things with that, but like not only are they like the most celebrated people in the world, it feels like they actually do run the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at least good for the world that they don't take that power and just completely abuse it.
It's like everyone just relies on them. It's like, it's actually insane, but like they happen to be such like good people.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's okay, cool.
Lucky sense of the word for the people and the fine people of New York. And obviously, again, the rest of the world, like we were saying. But yeah, from the moment that happens, I was just getting big the Batman vibes when you see Gotham and Matt Reeves' version of Gotham for the very first time. I was like, oh yes, I've been waiting for this. Like, I loved everything Christopher Nolan did. Many people did. It's like, it is the definitive version of Batman on screen for many people. But you see Gotham looking like that. I'm like, yes, please, pulled straight off of the comics. It's the exact same sense of it with the Fantastic Four. And they opened right on the Baxter Building too, a building that is so famous in Marvel Comics. And it's the first thing they open on. We just jump right into it. But I think we've glazed and talked enough about how much we love the very beginning of this movie, but it goes into another part that we really love. I think the more cosmic side of the Fantastic Four is something that really makes this family and the storylines that come along with them in the comics so intriguing and so interesting. Jack Kirby is the guy that of the duo of him and Stan Lee, when they were writing these comics for the first time, that really delved into the more just out there concepts that they could make. The Silver Surfer, Galactus, obviously everything that has to do in space. I don't know if he was huge the eye behind the Celestials. I have to imagine he was. But his designs are pretty for as out there and beautiful as they are, like on the page, you pull them off, and this movie kind of lands what the more cosmic side of this universe talks about. I mean, or wants to show, and hasn't, in my opinion, shown so far. We didn't get it in the Eternals. You get it a couple times especially if you saw it in IMAX. The pure scope of the Celestials when they're talking with the Eternals is insane, and that was really cool. But you get that for like 30 minutes in this film, like pure thrill of seeing someone like Galactus. And I'll just hop over to it because I know this is like your favorite thing about this movie, Chris, is not only Galactus, but one of my favorite things about this movie is also how we got Shia LaBeouf, the female Silver Surfer, just incredible in this movie. So how about we pick it up from when you get little alerts on the wristwatches, and Shia LaBeouf's coming in to basically herald the end of Earth 828, and what are the Fantastic Four going to do about it? They're going to jump into action, you know what I mean? And which, honestly, more main character energy from all of those characters, just to be like, we got this, guys. Who's this Galactus dude, anyways? Like Ben Grimm says.
Well, yeah, I'd say definitely second favorite is when when Galactus is there at the end. I think sort of that middle section, when they go into space, it's cool. And when they meet Galactus, obviously they're in his lair, and then the first time you see his eyes light up, you're like, holy shit! That's
when they're beamed in and they have to walk
giant
in
dude.
that.
And we got to say Ralph Ineson, he was the perfect choice for Galactus. His voice is I can't visualize anyone else doing Galactus.
Exactly.
And I think that's one thing, no matter what you think of the Marvel movies in quality, I think the casting, I know Sarah Halley Finn, I think, is casted every single Marvel movie.
Thank you, Sarah Halley Finn.
And she does a great job with the casting. I think everyone that's in these roles for the most part is excellent. It's a perfect choice. Obviously there are some, probably certain casting decisions over the years that people don't agree with or maybe think could go in a different direction. But for the most part, I think, they've sort of hit the nail on the head with a lot of stuff. And Ralph Ineson as Galactus is another one where you're just the voice is insane.
Well, after watching a few interviews with him and Julia Gardner as well, who plays Shia LaBeouf in the film, it's so funny to think. I was just in my own headcanon is that they actually had to pitch Ralph's actual voice up a little bit because of how low his timbre is, or his timbre in his voice timbre. But timbre.
Justin Timberlake.
Shout out Swag. Justin Bieber is not paying us to shout out his album. But anyways, Ralph's voice is just so naturally low, and just if you see this in a special format, the chairs are rumbling. We're gonna see this in Dolby with Jared on Wednesday, hopefully, and I'm looking forward to having literally the entire room shake when he gets up and when he leans into the Fantastic Four, and the pure way that the scope of this movie is shot whenever he is on screen. I almost forgot the awe of seeing him on screen twice. I think the first time was oh my gosh, you were losing your mind type shit, and I'm just over here also losing my mind. But I think the second time I didn't even realize that the Fantastic Four and Shia LaBeouf are in the lower right hand part of the screen, and when I started noticing it, it made it even more menacing because he leans in when he's like, Sue, I want your baby. He has the power cosmic. I'm going to make you literally give birth right now. He's terrifying.
Yeah, the fact that he can cosmically induce labor is
crazy.
Wild.
What a crazy piece of MCU lore.
Well, no, I think I do want to jump back and forth between both the Galactus scenes, because again, that scene when he descends on New York, he gets out of his chair. He brought the chair down to Earth.
Yeah.
So he can hop out of it
and
go into the water.
Dog.
He's aura farming hard that entire scene. The fact when he grabs the ground and starts sniffing it. And I love the Human Torch. I'm glad they got his reaction. Being what?
What is this guy
that
on?
Was weird.
This guy's a weirdo. This guy's a certified weirdo.
And you show he's not only a big guy who walks around and barrels things over, but he has cosmic powers, he can stop, he can freeze their car in place. And he can he's his big thing is scanning. He loves scanning. Oh, and I love that there's
he's not beating the allegations.
I love that when there's a sound effect whenever his eyes light up, and then you just see this scanning beam, and he's got X-ray vision, and he's I want to know where the baby is. And so I just thought that was again very cool, and obviously just again, the big scale. One of my favorite shots in that whole like sequence when he comes to New York is when, he finds the baby back at the Baxter building.
Yeah.
And he just like looks in there. Like his eyes just go in there.
And his poor Herbie is the only thing.
Yeah.
Like standing between him and Franklin.
Like they do a great job of like really letting you know the scale of Galactus.
Yep.
Like the way that they shoot it, it's like they'll shoot it like at like not eye level, but just kind of a regular shot like around the city, or like even there's that one where it's just you see his feet like stomp through. That's in the trailer, but it's cool like in context. But like that shot when like he just like peers into the Baxter building.
It's terrifying.
And he sees the baby, and they lock it, and then his hand comes through. I was like, damn, that's so cool.
This is a movie that I think would be so interesting to actually see in 3D, because the amount of times that Galactus is already coming at you in 2D form.
That's a good point.
Crazy. Yeah. But no, I thank you for bouncing back and forth, because I think we're going to do that for a few minutes here. I'm going to bounce back to that action set piece that pretty much sets off when Galactus induces Sue Storm into giving birth to Franklin outside of a black hole, while you're getting chased down by probably the second most powerful cosmic being in the MCU, the Silver Surfer, who I just got to shout out. The Silver Surfer is actually the true ore farmer, the true like one character who ore farms in all ends of the Marvel comics, of now the MCU, because it's her job to go out and basically from her sacrifice. One of the big spoilers, right, is like she is the one who sacrifices herself to save her own planet. But, I'm sure even in the moment that you're getting transferred and covered in just like an aluminum alloy, is the surfboard attached to the body? It is not. That's one of the big questions of the movie. But she's, I think, indicative of just really getting a chance to have some really cool shots in space, have some really cool action set pieces planned around her. I would have, it's one of my one criticisms about the movie, that I wish we just got more on the Shala Ball backstory, more than just like, oh, she gave in and Johnny Storm got a chance to kind of deduce it and have his own really cool moment, to use his smarts to be like, I literally recreated your language from a couple times we talked, right? Like in space while it was happening. But there's a dope scene of her in front of the moon as she's trying to explain to Johnny Storm what's going on. Like that first scene where she's shooting in and out of Earth for the very first time before they follow her. Spectacular. I do kind of like the vibe of having the Human Torch up with her and just flying around everything all the time. But probably we got to jump right into my favorite action set piece, not only in this movie, but definitely my favorite action set piece post Endgame. One of the top 5 in the MCU. Everything happening in space when Galactus starts chasing them down, and the Silver Surfer, more aptly, is chasing them through wormholes, outside of a black hole. Like she reaches her hand into Vanessa Kirby's stomach to try to grab Franklin Richards out of it. You know how terrifying that is? It's like the unknown that not even people in like an Earth 616 could comprehend, let alone a world where the only superpowered heroes are these 4 individuals and they're freaked out. It's insane. They have the Silver Surfer, Chris, actually surfing on pure lava. And I was losing my mind. The first and second time we saw it. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Lava and some ash with the black hole. Mm-hmm. Remember when she surfs on ash? I like the very like the slingshot thing. That was another like very like Star Trek type of deal. I thought that was cool. And also like going into labor in 0G was kind of crazy.
Hold her down. Don't hold me down.
What I did like about like they didn't get too, this kind of what I'm thinking about, like the Reed Richards, like his stretchy powers. Mm-hmm. They didn't get too weird with it. I like that a lot of the ways that he was doing stretching was very practical. Yeah. Like, he's like, I have to hold you down because you need gravity to like, push. And it's literally him just like stretching his legs all the way up to the wall so that he can like, he can hold her down. And then even like when like, oh, like we need to cut the engine, like the whole, like when they get pulled in the tractor beam, he's like, pull the lever. And he's like, oh, I got an extra hand. I can just get over there and do it. I like that a lot of the stuff was just like him, doing like very, like I can't get over there right now, but I could get my hand over there and do it. It wasn't like too like, they didn't do any like kind of weird stuff for the most part, which was good. I like that it was very like, again, very practical for a smart guy.
Well, they all also kind of get their butts beat in like by the Silver Surfer. You see the power dynamic and like the fact that to defeat either of these people down the line, maybe we use this as an opportunity to bounce forward again to kind of the actual action scene where Galactus is stomping through Earth 828's New York en route to trying to get Franklin, trying to get that power cosmic to quell his hunter like he talks about. It's really like a long montage of them getting completely beat down by Galactus about 80% of the time without having to, like, you literally had to use their smarts to outsmart the Silver Surfer in front of a friggin' black hole, man. Like, it's the most Fantastic Four thing I've ever seen. Is like the Thing is nearly as strong as the Hulk. Reed Richards is on par, if not beyond the intellect of like a Tony Stark. Sue Storm is obviously just an insane like diplomat and all this stuff. And Johnny just recreated a language from scratch. And I think that like more than their actual superpowers, like their intellect it's incredible the way that they're all able to balance that with each other. And it makes them come together in a really good way. But yeah, no, loved most of the action scenes that came when Galactus kind of sets foot in New York. And it was like, you clever little bugs couldn't get me. That's the thing. Galactus got some intellect too. He's got some brain power to flex as well.
I like when he throws the Thing into space.
Oh, crazy.
Like he's trying to throw like a big truck at him, and then he just grabs it. I love that like you can't see him, and then the camera like pans over, and then he grabs it, and then he just chucks him. And he just flies all the way into space, and then like Johnny has to go save him.
He starts freezing up because of how far into space he flew.
Yeah. It's like he did that without even trying. And the other thing too is just the funniest, probably the funniest shot of the whole movie is when he takes Reed and just like stretches him like fruit by the foot.
Seriously.
I was just like, wow, this is crazy. And he's just like, he's got the little smile, and he's just like having fun.
He's like relishing it.
I like you see him kind of like having fun with this. Like he calls them little bugs and stuff. And really, even like when they defeat him, it's just like because Sue basically died so that she could push him toward the hole, and even then that wasn't enough. And then Silver Surfer had to like have her change of heart so she could like bust him through, and then like the portal closes. So he's still out there. Obviously, he's a tough guy to defeat.
Yeah.
And so the fact that he's still out there, I think that was the best way to like end the fight.
Well, it's like they didn't really even defeat him. They saved their world rather than defeating them.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you could really fight a Galactus without getting into the more, again, like deeper cosmic stuff that this movie doesn't even get into to begin with. There is stuff with Galactus in this movie that made me feel genuine terror for my own life. And you have to imagine if you're looking up into the sky here in this beautiful Seattle blue sky today, Chris, and you saw in the distance a kaiju type monster, but it's literally a human the size of Godzilla.
Well, it's like a giant
marching towards you.
Because it's not like eternal celestial big, because that dude's big enough to like stand in space. But Galactus, like he has a giant ship that obviously looks like he probably like digs into the earth and carves it out so that he can eat it. So he doesn't like eat the planet. He's not big enough to eat a planet, but like he's got like the infrastructure to be like I can like beam this planet from the inside and then just like consume it all like little niblets.
It's in little niblets, little Fig Newton sized pieces, at least to him. No, it's really just one of the great achievements of this movie. Is just the ability to have pure size and scope like come through as well as it did. I do think the last time I felt this way, especially in like one of these nerd type properties and IPs, is when we watched Rogue One for the very first time, and you see like in the very final spoiler for Rogue One if you haven't had a chance to see it yet. Definitely check that movie out. But over the horizon, before they are about to blow up Scarif, you see the Death Star over the horizon. And that's the type of fear that Galactus like struck into my heart. Not only the first time he zooms into you, but it kind of catches me off guard when he jumps out of the black or whatever terminal transportation device that the last one that they were able to save in New York outside of the Baxter building. When he jumps, I was like, oh, that's a jump scare. This dude's cosmic horror to a T.
Wait, when he jumps? What are you?
Or when he comes back out of the hole. When he's kind of like, oh, when Ben's like, I think we got him.
Oh, when he like goes back into the portal.
Like you can't get him. It literally took someone of his similar power, someone who we had to give the power cosmic to be able to push him back in finally.
It's like probably the only jump scare of the entire movie.
Yeah.
Like, I think we got, and then he just pops out of there.
It had to be Ben.
I saw some people like in at least one of the screenings was just like, oh, there's like, perfect. Oh God, that was scary, a sort of thing. So I liked that. It's like, I like that he didn't go down super easy. I mean, like, that's like as for a third act battle, I'm just glad that like, for, maybe as conventional as some people might think it is, I just like, he's just a big man.
He's just a huge guy.
He's a big man. We've never seen a big man.
The definition like of a unit.
Yeah, he is a unit.
Like we've seen a bigger guy, Thanos, but he's like NBA. He's like taller than NBA players. This guy is like the size of the Space Needle. He could eat the Space Needle. He's the size of the Empire State Building.
Yeah,
like that's what we're talking about here in size of scope. I do have to give a little shout out to It's Clobbering Time. I love that every time in the movie. I know it didn't hit as well for you, but it's just like as someone who's just a complete shill for the comics I've read from Fantastic Four, I was like, I need to hear Eben Moss Backrack say it once, and I can die happy.
Yeah, for me, he just like hits him across the face.
He's a pebble.
He just hits him across the face when he says it's clobbering time. So it didn't really work that well for
Yeah.
me.
It seemed like more of like an ability to put it
I liked
in.
the joke though that like leads up to it. I like it in the beginning when they're like everyone's teasing him to say it's clobbering time,
What time is it?
and like Johnny is like, you know, like remember when you clobbered that guy and it's
Yeah.
like, you mean punched him?
You mean punched
no,
him?
I mean you mean punch.
It's dinner time.
See that? Yeah. What time is it? It's dinner time. I think that hit both times.
Yeah.
We saw it like that whole exchange, like the dynamic. I think we haven't talked too much about like the dynamic they have, like just like talking to each other,
Yeah.
and especially again going back to that first 30 minutes. I think it really helps. I mean, you kind of see it even throughout the movie. I mean, Ben and Johnny are definitely like the comic relief of the whole thing, but like the way they all like sort of get along together, and like even like when Sue and Johnny, because obviously they're siblings.
Yeah.
So like that when they sort of like talk about like, oh, I made a big breakthrough.
They have
like,
a real
or
like
Reed
sibling
wants
relationship.
to see you in the lab, and then like Sue gives them a high five.
Yeah.
Like the way that like the nonchalant way she like gives a high five and then like leaves. Like I think it's great. I think like the dynamic between all four of them is very good.
It's top tier. It's some of the best character work that we've seen, and people with chemistry, genuine chemistry with each other that I think we've seen since like the first Avengers movie. Because like the first Avengers movie is so fun for the exact reason. There's so many big heads, small heads. Like what is the direction of this team that's being formed?
Yes, and also too, before we get to the very, very, very end.
Yes.
Because we always do this, and I always forget the music.
Is incredible.
Okay, there we go. Is that
talk about
fantastic?
it.
Fantastic Four Q.
Yeah.
Is really great. I mean, like, they were so confident in it. They released it like months before.
Oh, yeah.
Like Michael Giacchino, like when like the trailer premiered or something like that. I forgot what it was. Like they performed it with a whole orchestra. I know at the premiere they did it again when they performed with a whole orchestra. And so like
check that out on YouTube. It's a great video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the theme is like just present throughout the entire movie. And
It's original.
it's great. Yeah, I mean, like Michael Giacchino. I mean, he's done like, he actually, I think he's the one who composed like, well, he's done the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Homecoming thing is cool. I like that theme. And then also he did like the Marvel Studios like theme in general. He composed that.
Yeah.
And so like he's kind of the one who gets all the license to kind of like riff on it and stuff. And like the opening theme here is just very like, it feels like very like 60s, type of like Marvel variation. And
ABC
also
opening coded.
He also did Werewolf by Night. He directed that too, and he did the Marvel theme for that, and that's kind of like the spooky version of it.
Oh yeah.
Which was fun. So, he's kind of a vet. He's definitely he's a vet at this point at like to the MCU stuff. But for any composer to be a vet, I think it's good that he's one of them. So
He gets Marvel Cinematic Universe. I would argue even more than
he just gets
the big guy up top. You know what I mean?
he just gets
even more than Kevin.
music in general because he did the Batman too.
Yeah.
We're talking about like all these different movies and themes and stuff.
Yeah,
He did the Batman.
Well,
He did Up.
Reinventing. Yeah, he did Up. He's done everything from animation to live action. I mean, another just shout out the Batman, one of our favorites. It's reinventing a theme and music that's probably so synonymous with everything with the character from Batman's like animated origins to everything with the movies that we got from The Dark Knight. I was about to say Christopher Nolan because it is a lot of names to balance in this, but Michael Giacchino, really a king in here. Like I said, walking out of the theater with you, probably one of my favorite parts of the movie is the fact there's no licensed music. It is all original music, which I got to check out the soundtrack again before we see it a third time probably. It's beautiful, and it really carries the film. It's really important, like balancing like the dialogue scenes where there's like a little, there's even a little bit of music behind most of the quiet scenes in this movie. It really is like beginning to end, all original work. Something I've enjoyed about this, starting this podcast and like really getting into some more of the weeds of like how these films are made. I'm getting to watch a lot more of these interviews, and one of my favorite with Matt Shakman was a little interlude bit where he was talking with an interviewer about how Michael Giacchino was just, I don't think he mentioned which song it was, so we could try to like piece it out afterwards. But there is a song in the film that made the final cut of the film that he made in live time on GarageBand. Like he was like, I downloaded GarageBand on my phone. I'm really having a moment of just pure bliss where I'm like, I know what this is going to sound like. And he's like, oh yeah, he was just making it in real time. And when Michael Giacchino was done with that, apparently people like Pedro and Vanessa Kirby were like, oh yeah, we get the scene now. He was literally learning how to use GarageBand on his iPhone in real time to make a song for this film. So it really goes to show you how important the music is to this. And yeah, Fantastic Four as a theme is probably, again, one of those top 5, probably most memorable ones that we've gotten out of the MCU, which is crazy. We've gotten so many films and projects at this point. But yeah, shout out the music, Chris.
Because it's also super thematic too. Again, the 1960s like time frame. You can do more like little 60s trappings. You can have like more of a classic score. Obviously, James Gunn's Superman is set in a very contemporary version of the DC universe. It's like present. It's like 2025, but with DC. And obviously, James Gunn is going to have at least 2 or 3 licensed music things that you've never heard of that he really likes and he wants to like put in the movie. And obviously, this movie is nothing like that.
It's nothing like that.
James Gunn is he's the only guy that really does that. So I like that the sort of the return to like, ooh, as a fly goes past me, that sort of return to like, just like classic score. I was like, hey, that's cool.
Dude, classic score, and let's give 2 hurrahs for the sound design of this film as well. Whenever Ben Grimm claps his hand and it just sounds like rock, ever since we heard it from that first, again, a pure like this movie got sauce moment for me. It's when I saw that in the trailers, and then throughout the film, I just think the creaking of Galactus's chair whenever Ben Grimm's hits something, it sounds like rock is hitting something. Like the reverberating effects off of Sue Storm's powers whenever she's going invisible or using her force fields. And underrated, but my favorite part of the film, and at least in terms of sound effects, is when you heard the stretchy nature of Mr. Fantastic's skin, and whenever Pedro gets stretched out like one of those Power Stretch Men action figures like by Galactus, it sounds painful. You see the pain like on his face in real time. But again, I just think it's just such a special part of the film is their ability to show us like why we want to see these comic books brought onto the big screen to begin with. I want the music. I want the ability to like hear how this sounds. Like I know how it sounds in my head, but hearing how they interpret how it sounds is like a completely different thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I think for the most part, I think we really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I just want to talk about in terms of like big criticism is the point when they return from Earth up until the time that Galactus shows up again.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely the weakest part of the movie.
I agree.
Where they just kind of like talk about stuff. And like one of my big pet peeves, I would say, in movies is when, I think we talked about this, is that like the whole Vanessa Kirby speech to everyone out on the plaza.
Yeah.
When like everyone's like, oh, like give up your baby, like save us, like so we can
honestly
all
a
get
rational thought for like the most rational thought that anyone, like everyone in this movie, everyone of the NPC characters in this movie, they glaze the Fantastic Four. Why wouldn't you? If they existed in our real world, I'd be like, I'd want to glaze everything about their whole operation entirely. But it's like the one part of the movie that you ever see them like actually get mad.
Well, they get mad, and the problem is like I don't like when you go into it and they're all angry, and then she talks and she's like, we're all a family.
Yeah,
This world's a family. And then they're like, you see like people like smile and like light up and like clap. That speech, I think I was listening to another podcast too. It might have been like Pop Culture Happy Hour, but they were talking about that scene where it's like, and I agree, where it's like, if that scene happened in real life, you'd be like, I do not buy this shit whatsoever.
It'd be like I'll take this from Jonas, to shout out Jonas again. Like we'd storm them. Like, no, take the bait. Yeah. We see him right there, like, hey, Galactus, let's like trade billions of lives for this one child.
They'd go straight for the baby. Obviously, she'd like turn invisible and like try to leave, but like someone would be like, I got her, sort of thing.
It's really like I have to put this into because you got me thinking about it. It seems like tonally like incredibly far, like Earths away, like miles away from the rest of the tone in this movie too, which is probably one of the big things for me. Like Vanessa Kirby acts really well in this scene, but like the way it's written and directed doesn't seem like it fits at all with the tone of the like 85% of the rest of the movie that takes place.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a studio thing or like a last minute script thing. They're just like, we have to put this in. That felt like a test screening thing where it was like both in the Galactus scene when they come back and they're like explaining why they didn't defeat Galactus and that Vanessa Kirby speech. Those felt like the two scenes where like the test audience was like, I don't understand what's happening here, and we need like more context.
Some more spoon feeding.
We need to come back into like, again, like more spoon feed the audience about what's going on. And I did not like that. That was like easily the weakest part of the movie for me. It was like, especially on the second watch, because I knew I was like, okay, I'm going to like a large portion of the first hour, and I'm going to like the last 30 minutes. But this 25 to 30 minute period where like, they come back and like they're waiting for Galactus, I was like, okay.
Well, you can.
I was like, I'm gonna get up and go to the bathroom now.
Well, and I actually went up and refilled our icy because Jonas was like, hey, you want to fill the icy? I'm like, I got you, bro. And I was just waiting for the beginning of that scene where they're kind of lamenting and having to have this conversation. But one of the only funny parts about that entire film is when you find out there is a Galactus cult of people who just absolutely folded immediately. We get a shout out the Devour Us song at the end of the film. But no, it's definitely a really weird part of the film. I do have to say, though, what happens after that part is where maybe like you and I might differ a little bit. I do love, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but I do love everything that comes up when Reed kind of like has his light bulb moment where he's like, let's transport the Earth to a different part of the universe, which is incredible. I was like, hell yeah. I was like locked back in immediately, and that carried me at least through the end of the film. But that was really fun to me. It seemed very, again, like comic booky, like we found a solution because he's the smartest man in the universe type of stuff, you know?
That was that was an interesting, like, cool idea, but like I wanted them to do it.
No, same. I'm like, why do we gotta start bringing it down?
The second time I'm like, I know they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Like when Silver Surfer starts destroying this stuff, I was like, well, I think that's the problem is that like they have like the big Vanessa Kirby speech and then he has an epiphany like, okay, we're going to transport the Earth.
Yeah, you
came
came
up. It doesn't
with
happen, and then there's like a 20-minute lull
Yeah.
where like Silver Surfer comes and then Johnny's like, oh, here's your language, and then she leaves, and then they have to for another 20 minutes like do something else.
Well, if there's anything about the movie that we liked, I think, is that it's under, or many things we liked about this film.
under
it's
2 hours.
Under 2 hours. But if I wanted 15 more minutes, I would have liked 15 more minutes on just like what happens with Shia LaBeouf. Like, it doesn't have to be pulled straight from the comics. It could be an original thing. But I feel like she has such a tragic backstory that I would have loved this interpretation of the Silver Surfer even more than I liked, the rise of one of the strengths of the Rise of the Silver Surfer from '07 is the Silver Surfer himself. Is like a very intriguing character. He kind of comes in and out. He's wrecking shit up. And it's like, why is he wrecking everything? Is because you find out is there's a giant cloud coming on the way. But that's the nice balance of this version of it is that she actually has like a human, I am once a man, type of a character who's a behemoth coming to eat a planet. And, she's already been through this terror. She's seen it hundreds of times probably at this point, eating multiple planets along the way of Galactus' just reign of terror over the galaxies. I just would have liked to see a bit more with Shia LaBeouf. I liked what we got, but I feel like I could have liked it more if we just got a little bit of backstory. Because Johnny, I love Johnny in this. I just feel like it was almost played out to be not so much like let's learn about Shia LaBeouf. Let's give Johnny his big moment where he gets to like, it did get the biggest laugh in the film when Ben's like he barely knows how to speak the English language, which was great. Biggest laugh in both showings. But yeah, I wish we got more with Shia.
No, I agree. I think that's the last thing I want to say before we get into like the final rating. I wish that like we at least seen Shia LaBeouf like infiltrate another planet and see what it looks like successfully. I think that would have been cool. I mean, they talk about all the different planets that he's.
And we see one get blown up, but it's like after it happens, right? After he's in.
You don't actually see like the people in there.
Yeah.
I think the most really effective shot were like if she goes and like we see what a successful Galactus outing looks like.
Yeah.
And like to see her like face as it's happening, I think that would have been very effective.
When we hear the screams, like I know it was crazy when we were watching it in IMAX the second time, that really loud scream that happened from the back right-hand corner just because of the way the speakers are shot up. But I mean, I agree with you because like all we do get is screams. It's the most effective form of terror when you can actually see the faces and how scared people were when they were getting murdered, by this big old Hulk of a man. Hulk of a man is probably giving him not enough credit to. He's literally the size of the tallest building on planet Earth. So
he's a big boy.
He's a big boy. But no, I think, like you said, there's a lot we loved about this film. Just a couple of things to criticize, but we had to get that all the way because now I think it's rating time. Chris, as always, I'm going to throw it over to you. What would you rate this film, and any last thoughts on the MCU's version and the first film from the Fantastic Four? And I will get into some talk about the post-credit scene, I think, after this. But yeah, your general thoughts to close us out.
Yeah, I give it a 4 out of 5.
Cool.
Aesthetic again is like 6 out of 5. I think that's a big driver of the rating for me because it just feels so like independent of other Marvel movies in like so many ways. It's like not very often a director gets the opportunity to do something that's like completely different but still in the same universe, something that's going to be like super relevant going forward.
Yeah.
So just have a chance to like build like a world like again, it's kind of like WandaVision was like the training wheels for Matt Shakman, and then Fantastic Four is like you really like get to be in like the big show. You get to show people like what you're thinking and what you can do. And I think he just manages. He's kind of the guy to be like, you want the retro thing? Like just bring in Matt Shakman.
Just bring in Matt Shakman.
Yeah, so just do that. But yeah, I think again, the dynamic between all the people is really good. Obviously Galactus is like crazy. But I just think, it's for the most part it's a good movie. It's just that some of that little like that middle part in the middle where it's kind of like, and I think that kind of drives the rating down for me.
Yeah.
But in general, I liked the movie quite a bit.
I am going to go with the really, really strong 4.5 Galactics out of 5 Reed Richards because, Chris, I think partially / greatly influenced by my bias for this being one of my favorite groups out of Marvel Comics and just in general over the years. And I've had a special attachment personally to the Fantastic Four. This is the movie that I have literally waited my entire life to see. I left so happy out of that first showing. I left the theater so happy just to see them land it. But I think what really solidified it for me was just the kind of the vibe of the theater we watched it in the second time. because it was like probably the closest thing that matched my own personal vibe around it, which let me, I think, lean into more of the things that I wanted to love and ended up feeling that I like certifiably loved about this film. Like you said, the character interactions, the casting is insane. I think it avoids some of the more MCU type downsides that plague many of these films over the years. Like there is still MCU DNA and gene coded directly into the genes of this movie, like anything that ever has the Marvel Studios logo at the very beginning of the film. But this movie is the definitive Fantastic Four movie for me. If we're gonna move beyond the casting, I think honestly most of the story is pretty enticing. Again, like I just shout out everything that came out of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's brain when they were making these characters to begin with. We are seeing cosmic horror and cosmic wonder at its finest, at least in like the comic book sense. Like you said, it's not ever going to be the quality of like a 2001 A Space Odyssey, right? But we have never gotten this type of quality of kind of work in space that we've gotten from any of these, let alone a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie ever. And I think that becomes the definitive version of that to begin with. The music is incredible. I think the character moments are sick. Like, you know, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff. I genuinely thought Sue Storm died at the end of this movie. And I was like, it gives you that feeling because it again, 828, it's so far away from where you know they're going to end up because you see it at the very end of Thunderbolts that their new ship is flying into Earth 616. And we'll get into that with the mid-credit scene and post-credit scene talk after this. But, you know, I genuinely thought that Sue Storm dies at the end of this film. I just love the way that this world surrounds them, and it's like makes them the opportunity to give us like these main characters. We get the intro that I wanted. We get to see the powers, I think, shown in a very good way. The comedy, honestly, throughout this film, it's not like the best comedy in an MCU, but it doesn't bog it down. I think it's more like general wonder in how the aesthetic of this film looks. How fun it is to see them interact as a family, and generally how they're just beloved beloved in this city. Like they are, again, like Superman, they are superheroes that save people and they care about people too. Reed Richards seems like the world's smartest man to me. I think it was like, again, really good casting, but even more props to how, Pedro plays a more withdrawn, socially withdrawn character, but again, like probably the smartest person that's ever existed. And it's really hard to kind of balance that. So from the character work to how much I just love Galactus as a villain, and the Silver Surfer as well as kind of like that entourage middle point, space, music, the way they wrote this film. Oh my gosh, I keep going in circles and circles around this because I could keep talking about it forever. We will be seeing it a third time.
This is your Shakespeare's monologue.
This is my this is my Hamlet is, yeah. But I do have to say, yeah, that 4.5 out of 5 rating probably catapults it into my top 5 MCU movies. In no particular order. Maybe we'll do a video about that down the line, especially after we get these next couple of Avengers movies, Chris. But speaking of the Avengers coming up, you want to talk to us about the mid-credit scene? Pretty crazy. And I really, shout out how the crowd reacted the first and second time. You can really tell that, for what they could have done, I think they gave us just enough. But yeah, let's talk about it.
The Doom, like both times, like
Dr. Doom, baby.
Crazy. I mean, like, especially the second time we saw it. I was like, damn, the reaction, it's like, you see, Vanessa Kirby's like, oh, like, something's wrong here.
Yeah.
And then you just see Doom unmasked. You obviously don't see his face, so it could have been anyone.
Yeah.
But then like just Franklin just being like, oh, look at him.
Look at
It's
his
this
weird
guy.
face, probably.
Just like, okay, well, there he is. He's here. He's in the MCU, and we're, he's going to be obviously our big bad. So
I don't even think that he's the Doom that's like kind of insinuated exists in this world from Latveria, because I think it's just like an all-powerful version. Like Robert Downey Jr. is hopping around looking for these like anchor beings and these anchor characters, which is something that we've been introduced to in the MCU. So maybe like Franklin Richards is the key to him catapulting into Doomsday and kind of the general feeling of like what Secret Wars is going to bring us. But I really think he's just going to snatch Franklin. And that's why we have the Fantastic Four dip into Earth 616, because that's where this version of Doctor Doom at least is going to end up. That's at least the way that I interpret it, and it got me really excited about it all.
Yeah, he's got to be real OP, obviously.
Man. God Emperor Doom, come on.
Yeah, he has to be like super OP. So that's probably a good theory, because like Franklin sounds like he can do kind of anything.
Kind of anything. He's kind of built different. Shout out Iron Lad for the real ball knowers out there. But 4 big shout outs to an incredible movie that left me and Chris just like loving it. It was a really fun time. Looking forward to seeing it again. But Chris, we got to get out of here in a sec here, so I'm going to throw it over to you just to talk about what you've been watching. you want to talk to the viewers and give them some recommendations for what you've been on lately?
So I watched a couple of like William Wyler movies. It's first one was Funny Girl, which is Barbra Streisand's like acting debut. She won an Oscar for it. Obviously, it's like a musical adaptation. I thought her performance was really good. I mean, it makes sense that like she won that Oscar. And I had the DVD, and so I saw all the special features. It's always fun seeing the special features of like what they were making during the time and like what people thought of it like in hindsight. There's like 3 promotional features on there from like 1968. It's like, oh, Barbra Streisand, look at her, you know, the whole like newsreel type thing. I thought was really fun. But yeah, the movie is quite good. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. Omar Sharif plays like the love interest, and if you've never seen Omar Sharif before, that dude he could probably have a baby with like anyone he ever wanted.
Crazy.
You take one look at him, you're like, damn, crazy. You know,
some men are blessed.
He's max aura farming. I want to say, like, I don't use that phrase very much, but that one, it was like that whole movie he's aura farming to
Incredible.
the max. And then another William Wyler movie, Audrey Hepburn's acting debut, Roman Holiday. That one's like more of a, you know, that was kind of more in the Hollywood and Rome era when they were just kind of like filming a bunch of stuff in Rome. Like the whole movie, they basically say like in general is filmed in Rome at the beginning of the movie, and it's Gregory Peck, Audrey Hepburn, and they just kind of go around. I won't get too, you know, we don't have a lot of time, so I won't get too like into the plot, but it's basically just them like having fun, like in Rome, and it was great. It's a good time. Yeah,
incredible. Well, yeah, I'm just gonna keep it short as well. I wasn't watching any movies other than Fantastic Four this week, but you know what, Chris and I did have a chance to go see in live recording. Maybe it's gonna come out as recording eventually, but shout out our people over at Dropout. Especially Dimension 20.
Yeah.
Brendan Lee Mulligan and his entire crew for D20. That was really fun. They came and did a live one-shot show called, I think, the Quangle, Time Quangle, basically is a...
Quangle Quest or something like that?
I literally bought the poster. You're right.
Something like that.
Yeah, shout out Quangle Quest. But, you know, just a place where they're able to pull out various mix of characters that they've played on their D&D campaigns over the years. And they're the group that I think got me into at least being interested in things like Baldur's Gate 3 and just generally D&D as a whole, because I think they just kind of vibe. They're just brilliant people, some of the best comedians, if not the best comedian group on the internet currently. I think one of the only things we'll ever suggest to you all to go spend your money on is a Dropout subscription. Best bang for your buck on the market. But speaking of Dropout, I literally went out after we got back from that really fun show, and I've started binging Fantasy High and getting through junior year finally. I think I started Never After recently, or Never After, which is more of a kind of like a what if Pinocchio and Red Riding Hood and all these like characters from the stories you read growing up were kind of in a situation for D&D. So Brendan Lee Mulligan, brilliant guy, really fun to see him talk about stuff like D&D. So what I've been watching is that, and just generally just been on Dropout. What a great group. But Chris, unless you have anything else for the viewers, I'm gonna jump in to credits here. Obviously, executively produced by Jonas Hyllseth. And check us out on Instagram at Pinoys Versus. Check out the RSS feed. We're on pretty much everything you listen to podcasts, but especially YouTube. Subscribe and like, my people. But really thankful to you all for tuning into another episode of Pinoys Versus the World. As always, my name is Harald Hyllseth.
My name is Chris Angkico.
And we will talk to you all in the next episode of Pinoys Versus the World. Peace.